Here we go. The long-awaited Hollywood adapt Kiramager. I would call it just Power Rangers Crystallizers because I'm very original like that. Long ago on the planet of Crystalia, a planet entirely made out of zeocrystals, formerly known as the Splintered Star, the Empire of Darkness invades, led by the traitorous Prince of Crystalia, Lord Obsidian. The big goal is to capture the Heartstone, which is basically the crystal heart of the planet. Lord Obsidian and the Emperor of Darkness, Osmodi, find it and try to take it, but then the power of the crystal really screws them up. But even so, the Emperor manages to tear a piece off the crystal. The King of Crystalia, Jules the 33rd, seeing this, sends the crystal away into space with his daughter to protect it, where it eventually lands on South Island, New Zealand in 1920-ish. But unfortunately, due to the crash and re-entry, the crystal shattered into many pieces. So the Princess Dazzle now has to discover the pieces again. So she forms Karen and Rescue Ambitious Team, or Carrot, to recover all the shattered parts and also rescue the planet from any threats because she doesn't want another Crystalia. In modern times, they have several crystals already recovered. Dazzle's second in command is Timothy, played by Diego Boneta, who's kind of like if RJ was also Captain Mitchell. And speaking of, there may or may not be a connection with Carrot also being Lightspeed Rescue. But unfortunately, the Empire of Darkness discovers that they're on Earth, so sends out a giant monster. That piece of the heart crystal they have turns into the obsidi saurus, which is like a giant crystal T-Rex with a chainsaw tail. And Lord Obsidian pilots it, and he's basically Darth Vader because he has a armor that keeps him alive. So Carrot sends out 4 specialists in their snazzy uniforms. They morph, but they are clearly overmatched. Meanwhile, a student watching all this named Julian starts sketching out some Zord ideas based off of the Rangers. And then they just mysteriously become real. There's a quick freak out, but then everyone gets used to the idea, and then Pink and Blue combine their Zords into the Sky Crystal Megazord. And then shenanigans later, Julian joins the team as the Red Ranger. And then we later introduce the Ground Crystal Megazord. And then the two can combine to form the Crystallizer Megazord, which looks so freaking good, especially at night. So yeah, we have our full Ranger team, so we have to discover crystal shards and rescue people. For our Rangers, Crystal Red, Julian, played by Matthew Lintz. He would be the kind of happy-go-lucky guy. Some people would try to have him be the leader, and then other crystallizers want to be the leader too, but then he would be the one to just have it so everyone's the team leader. And we will explain later how does he have the power to energize the crystals to be new Zords. But before that, the team leader is Crystal Yellow, Ryan, who's also an esports champion. He's played by Derek Hervey, who I started casting this back when I first started thinking of the ideas for crystallizers, and then all of a sudden he became a regular supporter of my channel, so thanks. Go check him out, he's really nice. He makes cool content. Crystal Green, Susan, played by Caitlin Carmichael. Basically think Izzy from Dino Fury. Crystal Blue, Tyson, played by Thomas Doherty. He's kind of like Dax from Operation Overdrive because he's an inspiring actor, and both they're Blue Rangers that have Zords that fly. But also Tyson is the serious one of the group, instead of being the comic relief. Crystal Pink, Sharon, played by Amabeth McNulty. Sharon is the smart one of the team, and she's the medical specialist of this rescue operation. When I started thinking of ideas for crystallizers, I had the idea that maybe use the princess as pink, but I think that might require a little too much Sentai gymnastics to get both out of the same scene. So whatever. Having the princess be a separate character, she is the mentor of the team, and she can be played by Jessica Dicicco.
Heading for the planetary power grid. Then the whole planet will have one bad case of frostbite. Come on, you overgrown trash can, show me what you got. It was Christmas Day when you set me free. Why did you lie to me? Did your experiments turn out the way you'd hoped?
And then eventually we introduce the Sixth Ranger, Crystal Silver, Regulus, played by Jim Kelly, the one and only. He's Dazzle's older adopted brother and heir to the Kingdom of Crystalia, but he didn't really want to be the King of Crystalia. He wanted to go on adventures and treasure hunt, which is what caused Obsidian to betray the kingdom because he wanted to be king. Prince Obsidian being Jules the 33rd's brother. So after the fall of Crystalia, Regulus traveled the galaxy treasure hunting because he wants to discover the Con Stones. 4 magical crystals. When brought together, they can grant you one wish. And Regulus wants to use the Dragon Balls to resurrect Crystalia. He also has the power to turn into a full Zeo Crystal, and then power up his own Megazord to become the Regulus Drill Megazord. I mean, yeah, the Crystalians are all Zeo Crystal people, but they are raw crystals. What they need to power things is refined Zeo Crystals, which is what Regulus turns into, and what all the Zords are made out of. And Regulus has the power to disguise himself as a human. And then we finally explain what's up with Julian. Underneath his childhood home lies the largest piece of the heart crystal they ever found. Julian gets his powers from it because he's wanting to help others, unlike Obsidian, who only wanted it just for its power. His determination to help others, along with his great imagination, gives him his strength, because the morphing grid is also powered by imagination. Also, the crystal has the king's mind in it. Jules put his consciousness within the stone so he can protect it easier. And it didn't shatter when entering Earth, as in by accident, but Jules did it on purpose to try and spread it out so if the Empire of Darkness ever arrived on Earth, it'd be harder for them to get the power. And he could be played by Jason Douglas.
Now I see how you could defeat Frieza after reaching this level. But even with this increase, you're only slightly stronger than he was. I bet you barely scraped by.
And then he could turn the Heart Crystal into the Phoenix Jewel Zord. And then give everyone a team battleizer, the Phoenix Jewel Armor, and its accompanying bow. And speaking of, all the Rangers have little Apple Watches, which they hit a button and it turns into the Morpher. And then they hit the morphing app and then say, crystallize, and then spin the little side part and morph. Silver has basically the same thing, but it turns into a different morpher. And he hits a button, then spins it, saying, crystallize. And then for the Empire of Darkness, starting, their foot soldiers are called Dark Pawns. Our first general is Sorcerer Gray, which is a play off of Ugly. He creates monsters of the week with crystals from Crystalia and turns them giant. And honestly, I think we probably should just use the suits from when they turn giant and just film original footage when they're fighting them normally, because when they're normal size, they look a little too silly. And also account for the fact that in the Sentai, this character has a real mouth. So, like, in original footage, just have a full face mask and then pretend that his mouth doesn't move in that. And then notice that his mouth moves in the Sentai footage. And we have Lord Obsidian over there, Darth Vader. He's the main general of the season, and his goal is to collect dark energy to A, create new monsters, B, revive the Emperor with the dark energy, and C, use that dark energy to recharge Crystalia because the good guys have the Heart Crystal. To play him, Neil Kaplan, who does have Power Ranger experience.
Commander Sendak, the Princess of Altea is alive and hiding in your sector. We believe she alone holds the whereabouts of the remaining lions. Your battle fleet is the closest to her location. Retrieve her and the lions. With them all, the Galra Empire will be unstoppable.
Then there's General Modai, the de facto emperor after since Osmodai disappeared. A lot of people don't like him, even Lord Obsidian, and he even thinks about cooing him, but we'll get back to that. He will be played by Kelson Henderson, the legend himself, because, he's played enough allies to Rangers. He can play a main villain for once. And then later we introduce Ozma, who's set up to be a Ranger ally and a love interest for Silver, just for her to be revealed to work for the bad guys. She has her own morpher using dark energy. And then Season 1 ends where Silver sides with the bad guys now, because of Ozma's influence. And then Carrot creates their original Crystal Zord, the Crystal Carrier Jet, and Timothy becomes Crystal Gold, using a modified Phoenix Bow as his morpher. And then the Gold Carrier Jet can combine with Jules Phoenix to become the Crystal Keen Ultrazord, which also looks amazing. And eventually they turn Silver back to the side of good, and they do cool poses because Power Rangers. And Ozma starts having second doubts about being evil, because she starts falling for one of the Rangers. Not Silver, but Pink. Progressive. Eventually she does defect and become good, and helps the Rangers create the Pearl Express, which turns into the Pearl Express Megazord, by helping the Rangers discover another crystal shard, and then having them temporarily capture the Obsidian Saurus, and then have that become the Obsidian Saurus Express Megazord. And then eventually we find out who Ozma is. She's a fragment of the Emperor Osmodai, and the other fragment being General Modai. Thanks to the power of the morphing grid basically zapping him, saying no, he has been very weakened, so he had to put his powers into Modai, and then Ozma is kind of like his scout. Kind of like that one really sad episode of Batman the Animated Series. So now, thanks to all the dark energy the villains have collected throughout the season, he's able to start to reform, and taking better control of Ozma when the two are separated. So he forces her to give back the Obsidian Saurus and 3 of the Con crystals the Rangers found, and he wishes to be whole again, so we get the full Emperor. His voice would be a combination of Ozma and Modai's voice actors.
Something like this.
And then he gives Ozma's old morpher to Obsidian, who gets new snazzy armor. And with his strength, he's able to capture Jules, the Heartstone, and he intends to go back to Crystalia. Like the Rangers, he wants to revive the planet, but he also wants to rule it with an iron fist, so Red has to go and deal with him as everyone tries to fight the Emperor, but they are obviously just curve stomped by him. The Con Stones are only granting 1 wish per 3 or 4 years, so Jules decides to sacrifice his consciousness to recharge the Dragon Balls, and after Red defeats Obsidian, he uses his wish to separate Osmodai, so Ozma and Modai are separate. And he gets back to Earth on the Obsidian Saurus Express Megazord, and then they fight Modai, and all the villains are defeated. Regulus finally takes responsibility and becomes king, and he decides to share his power with his sister, so they are both ruling the planet. The crystals won't be charged again for another 2 to 3 years, so they'll have to rebuild themselves, but they still have their friends to help them. There's also going to be a Dino Fury crossover. I would absolutely love to see this as Power Rangers, but I think this one should be waiting a little longer because it's so recent. Now after this, next Sentai adaptation, Zenkaiger, which I do have casting ideas. I'm totally Stacy, but it'll be done when Zenkaiger is done, so I know the full plot details of the season. I might do it with Hoppity, formerly Mediocre Gamer, depending on if she's busy or not. But until then, what do you guys think of my How I Would Adapt Kiramager video? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you have your own Kiramager adaptation ideas? Do you have your own fan cast? Do you like Kiramager? Have you seen it? Let me know in the comments below.